Today is, am I recording? Yes. Today is May 20th, 2023, Saturday. It's 3:53 p.m. as I start this video. A rainy day in Concord, New Hampshire. I ran some errands, got a good workout this morning, a little bit of work, done for the day. Got myself a vegan burger and cheese, and I'm heading home. I'm filming this video because there's a lot going on, and maybe somebody, I don't know, maybe I'm just not in the loop. I feel like I need to make these videos and start doing this because I'm the only person that I hear saying this stuff. Maybe there's other people. I think that what I'm about to say is very reasonable, thought out, and neutral. However, I've spoken about it with people that have dug themselves into another side or another view, and they've gotten very angry with what I'm about to say. But I'm going to share it here in this video with the understanding that this is a neutral point of view as far as I'm concerned. It's a what is happening, not a what should, but just what is. And the reason this particular topic came up is I went to go get food in this particular place, and I walk in and there is a young female presenting individual behind the counter, a little bit taller than an average female. I'm almost 6 feet and they were over 6 feet. A little thin, but a little bit more masculine built, but not completely. And then they had a deep voice. But in the dark setting and stuff at the restaurant, definitely appeared to be a woman. After conversation, they brought up that they were on, and I brought up that I don't eat soy in a conversation, because I've tested my particular hormone levels before and after. And I quit soy in 2015. And my hormones have done nothing to improve for me. And they said, oh, I wish that eating tofu and soy would increase my my estrogen. It would save me a lot of money. And they had a deeper voice, a masculine voice, on a wafery young woman's body and long hair and a soft face. And as this is happening, a friend of mine texted me a video of Chrissy Mayer on a podcast talking about maybe being attacked by Dylan Mullaney in a comedy club. I haven't watched it yet. I just saw the title, because I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it's a gag or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I'm getting two complete different sides and thought processes of this within a couple minutes. You know, I'm in a place with the person that's obviously welcome and friendly, and then I'm getting a video that's probably I wouldn't say anti, but a little bit negative, or at least against the power structure promoting what is transgenderism. So as I wait for my food, I began to think, and things have come a long way. So when I grew up in the punk scene, I'm still in touch with them from time to time. The real punk scene's kind of gone. But I grew up in the punk scene, I had people that considered themselves androgynous, and I never really thought much of it. You know, I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and we had Prince, we had David Bowie, we had Poison and Motley Crue wearing eye makeup and long hair. And I didn't really think anything of it. I never wore any makeup or wanted to wear any makeup. I did have long hair for a while. I was mistaken for a woman by some old people when I was young, but it didn't bother me. It bothered my parents. I didn't really care what some old blind Q-tip thought of me. But as time progressed, we're now living in an age where kids grew up a little bit different. I grew up with, so we still grow up with a running on a reality. Here's where the philosophy is going to kick in. So I grew up, everybody from this day, from the beginning of time, from 600 BC, Socrates era, all the way to 2023 AC. This reality is always running in the background, and we can't see a lot of reality. So a lot of what we live in seems like a filter or a metaverse. You know, instead of binary ones and zeros, we use carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and what have you. And we're running on this particular plane in this particular universe, and there may be other program type things being run. Not necessarily programmed like we think of a computer, but our objective senses, which, you know, we have quite a few. We have 5 major ones, obviously: sight, taste, smell, touch, hearing. But there's also, you know, balance and all the other stuff that helps us interact with the universe, the senses. As things changed and pursued, I lived in a generation where internet was discovered, and it grew quickly. It grew so much that it's in your pocket. Some people have never seen a world without internet. And this creates another layer to the metaverse. You know? It puts another layer on top of it. So now it's carbon and nitrogen and everything built up, and now we have a secondary one that we look at that is kind of like photographs and pictures and stuff of that world built in zeros and ones, trying to portray that as if it's carbon and what have you. It's like we're trying to, if there was a God, instead of thinking of it being a masculine because it's a male with a beard on the cloud, but if it was a God, think of it as a structured, logical, based in reality instead of socially structured reality. So, you know, there's a reason that it's called, God is considered masculine, that it's Father Time that ticks away because it's tick, 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 but it's Mother Nature that is chaotic. The way that those core principles interact with one another are hard to predict, but the core principles themselves are always running underneath. So we come to a time now where there's a lot of people, as we move forward and technology grows, that understand science as what is, or God, or the universe as what is. And the study of science, being a scientist, is to figure out what is around us. Then the engineer comes in and says, oh, thank you for telling me what is. Let me see what could be. So often people don't know what science is, and they don't know engineering. They don't know where they overlap. So actual science is ever changing and never settled. So those who say the science is settled are really saying this particular group, government, we're saying that this is the one that we're going to go through as a group and follow it forward. And it brings us to another cutoff point, another branch off point, is some people see the world as chaotic. They don't understand the underlying science. They only see the mother nature. They can't see the father. They can't see the son, which is how the path of an individual would walk through that science. And they can't see the spirit, which is the happiness that's come from them, or the essence. I know that sounds religious, but it's understanding through multiple cultures that that's how you can perceive things. So it's science on top of how we interact with science in order to live a good life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are all different ways to say what I just said. However, some people that don't understand these core principles, that can only see the mother, the spirit, the pagan side of things, it feels chaotic, and their understanding is a little bit different. Their emotions are real to them. It's not a chemical that waves over them that they can ignore. It's an action that they must come to. And in this chaos, they want some sort of way to carve out structure. And these individuals, they don't see government as chaotic at all. They see the world as chaotic and the government as structure. Whereas those that see the structure within the world itself that exists, they see the government as the chaos. Now, you have generation and generation now growing up. I remember, this is going to be a little anecdotal, but whenever I played a character in a video game, I always kind of made the character like me. When you could start changing it, or with a character that I wanted to be, not the character like that I wish I was. And then as time went on, and you could pick male and female characters as women started playing, I always picked male characters. But I did know males that picked female characters, and at first, I'm going to admit, I thought it was weird. But then you understand that it's just a game, and you're just having fun, and it's no big deal. And within this game, if you've ever played an online video game or an RPG MMO, you quickly realize that when you play the female character, the game becomes a little bit easier. For those who play the male character, will do a lot of work for you. Now, imagine being a child raised in a situation where you see a society that's trying to balance things. And if the world is order, but you're told that it's chaos, then you need to balance that. Then the people that are always going to be asking for balances are going to be on the matriarchal side or the feminine side. Now, as time goes, now it's not science, but it's engineering, and it's body engineering. And everything that I just explained to somebody within a structure that has a DNA path or ability or IQ ability to understand what I meant by structure, logic, and stuff, and believes in that, some people claim that is a Caucasoid or light-skinned evolutionary trait. It may be. And so everything that I just spoke about to them becomes white supremacy. Meaning, if you claim that that is the best method and that no other methods can compete, then you're saying that only white people can do that. And anybody, does not matter what color your actual skin is. If you follow that credence, if you follow that as a path, you're following the path of white supremacy. A non-supremacist white supremacist path would be, there is no God, no underlying structure. So the idea of transgenderism has been a little bit mutated. So the idea really should be that if you have complete free will and there is no God, and you spit into this world and it's random chaos, sperm hits the egg and spark. Now that's science. With all the technology that we have, we still do not have the ability to create life. We can change life and kill life, but we cannot make that spark. We can take a seed apart, but we can't put it back together. But the idea being, when that spark clicks, if your chromosomes become XY or XX, you're set on a destiny of a course. But if you actually had true free will, you can ignore that science for engineering. You could say, okay, yes, I have XY chromosomes, but I want to play this game with XX chromosomes, but I can't. My chromosomes are set in stone. And I'm going to begin evolving, and they're going to begin creating particular parts of my body. And as this happens, I'm going to be moved a certain evolutionary way that I don't want to and I don't feel comfortable with. So here's the crossroads. The idea is, if you're an XX and you embrace your XXness, or if you're an XY chromosome and you embrace that, and I understand there's some other Neil Diamond type chromosomal sets, but let's just stick to these two to begin with. They set you on a journey, and within this journey, certain things are going to happen to your body. I will concede that gender is a spectrum, meaning that the roles that then accompany those are askew. But the biological evidence that sits beneath that is unchangeable. So they would call it, or some would call it, white supremacy, if somebody is feeling uncomfortable, depressed, anxious, or whatever, that the attempt of psychiatry and with the attempts of sociology and all this stuff and engineering is to help that person find their way back to baseline. Meaning, if you're an XX, you're feeling all sorts of whatever, we try to make you back to a baseline of comfort and happiness by correcting or helping you work through traumas or whatever happened to you. If it was drugs or alcohol or traumas or dropped on your head or a car accident, we got to get you back as close to baseline as possible for however you were, as however you have to be. Kind of the universe of God selected this for you. Whereas the engineer's thoughts is that, what if, okay, it might be early in the process, but you want to try out another gender? We kind of understand the baseline of science, what happens naturally between individuals. We can give you the hormones that the other one gets. We can inject them into you, which will recreate a different evolutionary course for you. The science isn't great right now. We can't exactly change you over. Maybe we can in the future. But once you go back on this path, you can't really get back to baseline the other way either. So if you want to kind of be part of an experiment that you'd like to change this, you have the free will to. We can engineer your body to meet what you want. And maybe they're trying to meet a social need or a physical need or whatever. But the idea is, instead of bringing you back to a baseline, which, like I said, some would call a destiny type thing, they're saying it's almost like an ultimate free will. No, I want to choose my gender, and now I can. And the issue here now, let's go to another crossroads, is up to this point I don't really see any personal problems, except that the people that sell this are selling you gender change. The pharmaceutical companies have chemicals that they inject in you that you have to inject forever in order to stay on this path. Maybe women that switch over to men once they hit menopause could slow down because they'll naturally create less estrogen and more testosterone. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works, but the idea is they're selling you this, but now they're pretending you that they're not. It's a lifestyle change. It's a lifestyle thing. They're selling you, just like there's marijuana ads, there was cigarette ads, there's alcohol ads, there's now transgender ads. Don't like your gender? You can change it. Here's how. Oh, let me offer you a surgery. And if it was elective and people had to pay for it out of pocket, it'd be a tough sell. It would be a rich and the famous. And it kind of is already. I mean, you can tell the more money that somebody has, the better the changes are. Whereas if you have no money and you can't even take hormones, you know, you'll look like me with earrings on and makeup and say that you're a woman. And so if you can pass that as gender dysphoria and make it a medical condition, then you can make it a non-elective surgery. Then a healthcare company / pharmaceutical company can sell it to an insurance company. And now you have, if you have government insurance and the government insurance covers it, then you can sell somebody a product called changing your gender to make you feel better or whatever you want. Fancy new car will make you feel better. This will make you feel better. Here's your gender, it'll make you feel better. You get to wear dresses and all makeup, and you know, maybe your life will be a little bit easier, like that character you played in World of Warcraft where everybody helped you. And then now the government can print money, give it to the pharmaceutical company on your behalf, and sell you this product. That's what I'm concerned about. Each individual has the right to do with what they want to do to their body. And as technology increases, there'll be lots of choices. And I can also see how the later in life you wait, the longer and the worse it would be. So if I were to try to transition to a female right now, my results are probably going to be slim to none. So but back in, I believe, the 1800s, up until puberty, there was no term called boy. It was just called girls. And boys and girls were called girls. And a lot of times they wore similar clothing, knee-high socks, and sometimes skirts and dresses and stuff. And then when they got older is when they started picking their roles up. So I guess the question is, how do we allow everybody to live their life according to their values and morals? And you have to do this without coercion from the government. Because the issue with all the stuff that always happens is they try to make a one-size-fits-all solution. So it starts off as if people want to change their gender, they can. And no one has a problem with that. They're like, it's free will, it's your body, it's your choice, go ahead. And then it moves into, well, now we need to create a law that everybody accepts that. Or we have to call them this name, you got to do. And now people don't have freedom to assembly or freedom to prejudice against who they don't and who they do want to hang out with. And these edicts come down. And it's mostly the extremist people talking to one another. The young woman that I met today didn't seem to have much of an agenda. I don't know what their personal life's like. But they seem like they just wanted to be a cashier, be friendly, be helpful, and live their life as a woman. At least that's the feeling that I got. Which is not much different than me. I want to just wake up, I order a burger, and live my life as a male. The difficulty becomes when you're depressed and they sell you a Ferrari, and the Ferrari doesn't solve your depression. You can sell the Ferrari, take a financial loss. But if they sell you a different gender and you do permanent changes to your body, and this has started already a long time ago. It started with tattooing. There's a lot of people that cut and make scars on themselves. Body modifications, ear stretching, and all sorts of stuff. And now it's full gender reassignment, or trying to. Once it's done, it's done. Now, there's currently ways that they can remove tattoos. Maybe someday in the future they'll have, like Star Wars, Star Trek replicators where, like I said, we're in a matrix, so if my ear were to get ripped off, technically everything that makes my ears around, the electrons and the neutrons, they just have to be put into a particular order. Maybe we would have a tool that can reshape the fabric of electrons, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and remake an ear for me. And maybe they can do similar stuff in the future with penises and vaginas and buttholes and breasts. I don't know. I wish that this was a topic that would make people calmer. Because everybody that I see, without exception, has an emotional investment in this, on the right and on the left. Now, obviously that's a bias because those who aren't emotionally invested aren't going to be making videos and stuff, so, or saying stuff or speaking out, they're just going to be living their life. So I guess you could say that I'm kind of emotionally invested because I'm making a video here. But whereas I don't want to be forced to date transgender individuals, I don't really see a huge deal with them. I think the issue becomes when, and this will probably change too. So it's like, so the idea with the dating people. Imagine there was like a machine, and you set it male or female, and you're a male, and you walk in it, and it changes everything for you. It reconstructs you. So you have similar thought process connections, but your chromosomes change, your sex organs, everything change, and you come out the other side. And when you do that, you can change from woman to male from male to female, female to male, and then I don't think anybody would have a problem dating that individual. What's currently happening is that people with the limited new technology that are male are walking in this machine, and they're getting, it's changing maybe a tenth of their body, and they walk out the other side and they're saying, okay, well, I'm a woman now. And the other people are saying, well, you're still a man, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And they think they've been sold a Ferrari and they're pulling up in a Mazda, and that's just kind of what it is right now. I think at the core of, though, on the right and the left, most people just want to see individuals happier. And they're trying to agree on how to get there. One thing that I will say is I do lean on the side that happiness, whether it's anxiety, depression, gender dysphoria, weight loss, or whatever it is, isn't going to come from a pharmaceutical place. It's going to come from within. There's ways to help, I'm sure. But even take extreme examples. I grew up powerlifting, and I watch a lot of bodybuilding stuff and powerlifting stuff. I still lift daily. And I know quite a few people that thought that they had body image issues. I have had them, and that was behind their not being happy. So they did a bunch of steroids, anabolics, and trembling and everything, and got jacked, beautiful, jacked, muscular, the epitome of what they thought was a man. But they still weren't happy. So they took pharmaceuticals. It's pretty much transgenderism as we see it now. They were a man that didn't feel or identify. They identified as manlier, and they wanted their body to represent what they identified as. So they took a pharmaceutical and it changed them. It changed them from an average man to a super physiological human being. And a lot of those people aren't happier. Now, health is a completely different thing. If you're unhealthy and you change your health through diet and exercise. I know my depression, now that I manage my food and get my macros, my micros, all my vitamins, my water, my sleep hygiene, my exercise in, I mean, I can't even think of the last time that I was in a bad mood. It's pretty easy to regulate. One last thing that I just like to say, and this might be philosophical, this might seem biblical, is that you're born an objective name such as male or female. So, depending on your chromosomes, if it's XX or XY, you're a female or you're a male. They do give you a title based on those as girl and boy. And when you get that title, the idea is if you have this chromosome makeup and we label you a boy, we are going to give you the wisdom to become a man. And if you're got these chromosomes, you're labeled a girl. And the people around you are going to give you the wisdom to become a woman. And many different cultures have many different ideas of what that is. I think some of the problems I cook everything for myself. I cook, I clean, I work on my car, I change my tires, I change my oil, I can build a house, I can sew. And I don't think that that's just straight wisdom and knowledge and skill sets that I've learned from my family. But as a man, there's going to be specific things that will happen to you physiologically from your chromosomes and testosterone and estrogen that's going to make you feel or be a certain way. And when you understand those and can control those and then take responsibility for that, that's when you take the step from boyhood to manhood. Likewise, you have a sexed female, objective, assigned girl, fed wisdom. Doesn't mean you can't play sports. It doesn't mean that you can't cook or work on cars or cut trees. It just means you're going to have testosterone and estrogen as well. But most of your testosterone is going to be turned into estrogen, which is going to be a different experience for you. And so the wisdom that you get, once again, is when these chemicals are released and you have a reaction, there's a particular way that you want to handle those, that you can fit into society and treat people around you with kindness and respect, that you'll be happy and successful. And when you are able to do that, you transform from a girl to a woman. Now, in some cultures, when you've worked on yourself and you're a female, you've been assigned a girl, you've given the wisdom to become a woman. Now you say, I want to have really fulfill my biological premise, and I want to have children. And I want those with a strong man. So now I want the wisdom and skill set to be a wife. So this now is individual female, individual girl, individual woman, but more societal structure, what it takes to control these emotions, deal with society. And then if you choose wife, it's another set, because now it's going to be, you're going to be responsible for family life, dealing with the male structure. And now you have to understand the wisdom of how a male interacts so that you can take your female wisdom, interact with a male, and then remember when you were a girl, if you have girls. And then, meanwhile, find a husband, meaning somebody that's trained in the skill set of husbandry, just like you've wanted to be a wife, so you trained in the skill of wifiness. So this man that you find was born male with a chromosomal makeup. We could predict that he's going to have testosterone and what have you. He was labeled a boy and worked to become responsible for his testosterone release and actions and stuff, and became a man. And then instead of being a playboy his whole life, he decided he wanted to be a husband. So he went out into the world and he sought husbandly skills, and then he became a husband. So now he's a husband out in the world, unmarried, and she's a wife out in the world, unmarried. And they have these skill sets and they find one another. And without the government, or without intervention of the government, they decide that they want to marry. When they decide that they want to marry, it's a decision that we want to have kids together. We want to take my lineage here, my DNA, my knowledge and my wisdom, your lineage, your knowledge, your wisdom, and we want to marry them. Married them. And how are we going to get a physical manifestation of that? Through a child. So the child is now the marriage. It has nothing to do with paperwork, nothing to do with the government, nothing to do with any of this stuff. It has to do with these two people within that sequence reaching that conclusion, having that child. And now marriage is for life, or to death do you part. Because once you've married, there's a child there that's half you and half them. And it needs the wisdom from you of how to interact with its DNA that it has. So both of you have to stay part of this. So if you marry and the marriage produces a daughter, then the mother is going to be more responsible for helping the female that's been labeled a girl, who's also a daughter now, and bring her wisdom to womanhood. But within this journey of womanhood now, she gets a little bit of an advantage because half of her DNA is her father's, and he can dissect this logically for her and explain to her what he's kind of like and what his mother's kind of like. Vice versa, if they have a son through marriage, because they have multiple children, he's going to be labeled a boy. He's going to be given certain particular wisdom that raises him into a man. The father's going to probably be with him a little bit more once he gets to that puberty stage. Once in the beginning and he's nurtured and he doesn't have this high testosterone. Then he hits puberty, gets the testosterone. He leaves the mother, deals more with the father, but still needs the mother because half his DNA is hers. And this repeats. It's a really beautiful cycle, but I understand it's not for everybody. Today, most of us don't understand or see the science like that and the wisdom like that, so we have a lot of failure, which is fine. People are allowed to go into a business arrangement from the government and share their financial situations and benefits from the government that the government's created. But this is not a marriage. That is a business arrangement that the government has created and they've engineered. It's not science. It's an engineering. It's a social engineering. It's a social construct. So when you hear people say, and this is why I brought this to that pinnacle, to that social construct term. So when you hear people say gender is a social construct, that's what they mean. Or marriage is a social construct, that's what they mean. If you see the world from an objective point of view that's stagnant and logical, like I had aforementioned and worked out here. And again, please don't put a connotation. Well, you're going to do whatever you want, but people are going to put a connotation on these words instead of looking at them from the denotive or denotation of the word. I'm just using these words as they stand. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but the other side of it is a little bit more chaotic where, hey, you're born, it doesn't matter, you're loosey-goosey. It doesn't, we don't care what gender they are. Let's see what they pick. Oh, at a certain age, if we want, they could decide that they want to inject themselves and change their gender. So let's not give them any wisdom to that. Or instead of letting them pick, we're going to pick, which is even more selfish as far as I'm concerned. But here's the underlying issue there. I can understand what you're saying, because if somebody's born with particular chromosomes and you label them a boy and you raise them as a boy, so it's like male, boy, wisdom to a man, but you could have somebody that was born with chromosomes and that are flipped, and you say, okay, even though this should be female, we're going to raise it as a boy. The parents are still making a decision. I think the selfishness comes from, you're not picking natural order. You're picking your free will to choose how that child then goes. So you can either try to keep them a blank slate till they decide what they want to do, or you can choose and help them, but I would stay in alignment with the the known science. And I know this is going to become difficult because those who are social in manner see social science as a science, whereas it's really adaptation to social pressures and structures. And lastly, I guess I'll end there on this because I'm about 45 minutes in, this is all a spectrum. Everybody is going to be a little bit affected by nurture, a little bit affected by nature, and then usually males left to their own devices will be affected more by nature, and women left to their own devices will more likely be affected by nurture. And some people will fall outside of that spectrum, and some people will fall dead on balls accurate to that. But in the end, I think the idea is if we could step back for a second and let people live their lives without affecting other people, that would be helpful. I don't really want to get into the whole bathroom things, but the problem with the bathroom thing is the people that are changing and that want to use those bathrooms see the world that's chaotic and the government as the structural thing. And since the government is now behind the pharmaceuticals selling this product called changing your gender, they want the world, which is society as they see it, to change, because that's what they do. They engineer everything. So they're like, well, if you've engineered me and you've engineered this and everything's chaotic and you're organizing and engineering it, then we need to engineer it like this. And the reason people get so angry on the other side is like, well, that's not the world. The world is everything, and the government is just a group of individuals, and some think of them as a mafia that's forcing people into a collective, a giant forceful cult. And so they're like, no, your forceful cult doesn't get to come into my world and tell me what to do. You already forced me to do all this other stuff, but I'm drawing the line. And they're just like, I don't know if you've seen the Akira monster from the anime, but it's just like going over and pulling everything in and devouring it. It's kind of like what government is sometimes. And it's like, okay, if you're going to make government buildings, then I guess have, bathrooms that allow multiple people in them. But you can't then force private individuals to do this. And I mean, it's a real simple solution. I mean, in Boston and Providence, I've seen this for years. You go into a restaurant and they just have single room bathrooms. So you have a bathroom with one toilet in it that anybody can use. And then you just wait. So they have multiple bathrooms for a single individual. So instead of having male and female and trans or people going in that they don't like, everybody uses everything, respects the space, one person at a time. Easy peasy. So, all right, I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. Maybe I'll put this on Twitter. I like this video, but who knows? Probably nobody will watch it. All right, take care. Love ya.